All right, so here's where we are. You can see that slide. Lies we believe. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I want to remind you of something, because I've talked about this before. Not these two lies that we're going to talk about over these next 2 weeks, but just as background noise, there is a lie that's bigger than all of them. The biggest lie of all time took place in the garden. You should be keeping up with slides now. But anyway, it'll work out great. So the biggest lie took place in the garden. Next slide. And here's what that lie is. Do you remember it, by the way? Do you remember who told the lie? The snake. And the biggest lie of all time was God is holding back on you. God, it is a lie that creeps up. And we're not even going to talk about it today. But I just want to remind you, when you feel that, like you can't trust God, it is the echo of that lie going through every generation, every person, and probably every day of my life. And that's when I'm most tempted to go, I'm going to do this my way. Because you know who I trust more than God? Me. Which is ridiculous. So the second lie is I'm in control. Right? I mean, the person I shouldn't trust is me. But I have this illusion and delusion that I'm in control and also that I'm actually trustworthy. And here's what I think. We talked about this just a little bit at Christmas Eve. I think if I do everything right, it will work. No matter what it is, if I just do it right, it'll work. And these are like connected to that thought. If I do everything right, I can fix this. Why would I need to fix anything? Because I don't always do everything right, so it didn't work. Now I got to fix it, so I need to do everything right to fix it. Every problem I have. So I take a lot of responsibility on myself with that. And then also, if I do everything right, I can prevent that. There's some things that are coming down that you can see. And we live in this year, we already just said, it's unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen. But I think if I just live my life right, I can predict this. Now, I will tell you what cured me of these delusions. My children. You know the best parents in the room? Those who don't have them yet. Everybody else has been humbled. Everybody else has gone, you know what, I thought if I just did everything right, they would do this and that and be this way and that way. And then we get our real kids and they're part of the fallen world. And we're going, no, I thought I was going to do everything right. I had plans. I made my control. Now, we use planning all the time. In business, it looks like a plan with stages of development, right? So in fact, if you try to get a loan for a business and you go in, they go, well, where's your business plan? And you go, winging it. Just going to wing it. They're just going to go, no, you're not. You're not getting our money. You got to show us your plan, how you're going to make the business come together. But the problem is, even though you have all those plans, like we just talked about this next year, every plan has unknowns. Things that you cannot anticipate, even though you make the best plans. So the best of plans get ruined by the things we don't know. So let me give you a classic example. In 1884, maybe you have an idea for a bigger, better buggy whip plan. You're going to form your own buggy whip company to encourage the animals to move forward, pulling the buggies. That's what some of you don't know. That's what a buggy whip is for. It doesn't actually hurt the animal, but it's there. Well, in 1884, that would have been the exact wrong year to come up with a new buggy whip, because Carl Benz in Germany invented the first car. That's it. You want one? Right? And it moved like, I don't know, 3-4 miles an hour. But it could go like 200 miles. Right? It had one cylinder. That's all it had to go. And that was the beginning of all the change that would make your buggy whip obsolete. It's not, I'm sure you can buy them, but it's a very select group of people who are buying those today. So no matter how good your buggy whips were, could be the best ones ever, your company would be doomed. Right out of the gate. Now, I know that, and I still think I'm in control. Right? You haven't learned a single thing today. Did you know that this year has some things coming at you that are unexpected? That you can't predict the future, that you're not in control? Intellectually, we understand those things. But I still think that I'm in control. And I don't know why. I don't know why I can't grasp that. When you do that, by the way, it kind of speaks of arrogance, doesn't it? That, hey, my plans are going to work. And what I tend to do sometimes is I tend to make my plans and then I ask God to sign on. Right? Hey, God, I got a plan for you. It's an incredible plan. It does me pretty good too. But, so I just want you to join in on my plans. And so today we're going to talk about that because we're at the exact time of year when we start making plans. A lot of us. You might call them resolutions, but usually they're even, I think a lot of us go, I'm tired of resolutions. It's always gain weight, lose weight, something on that level, exercise, be more loving, whatever it is. Those are just plans. But some of us make real plans. We go, this year, I'm going to, and we put it on paper and make them. So the Bible says something about it. In fact, it says it in James chapter 4. Now, James, you might remember, was somebody's brother. Whose brother? Jesus' brother, which I think is like the coolest thing ever. And we've talked about this so many times. But how cool is it that Jesus' brother knelt and called him Lord of the universe? Right? Every time I go, if you need evidence that Jesus is who he said he was, his brother worshiped him. Now, if you got a brother, think about that. Right? Because you're going, it would take coming back from the dead. It would take the puzzle pieces coming together to follow. So it's one of the best evidences that Jesus is exactly who we said he was. There's lots of other ones, but every time I look at the book of James, I always think about that. His brother, I got a brother. I got two brothers. Together, they don't equal half a God, So there's no, now wait, they thought they did. They thought so because they're older brothers, and that's the way it works. All right, so James chapter 4, James is writing things. Book of James is so much fun to read. I'm going to tell you why. When you read the book of James, you feel like he's talking to you. It comes out with just like this normal, conversational, it's almost like he was dictating and it was just recorded. So here's what this is the end of the book, James chapter 4. Here's what he says. He says, look here, you who say, today or tomorrow we are going to a certain town and we will stay there a year. Let me just translate that. Look here, you who are making business plans. And you're going to go to another town and you're going to you got a plan. You got it worked out and you're going to make a profit. You're going to stay there a year. We will do business there, make a profit. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? And we've all said that we really don't. We have no idea. I could talk about people in the church. There's a man in our church, many of you know if you're in the prayer chain, who had a fall down the stairs this week. He's in the hospital. I've not had a chance. We've talked. Not me personally. Doug Weinkoff gave him a call, so I found out some details. And he says, no, don't come down yet, Doug. And I go, good, I'm really busy. But this next week, I'm going to go see him. Right? And I don't think he'd mind, so I'm just going to tell you, could we put in the prayer chain, Jim Smith. Right? And lacerations and broken ribs. And he's 81, too. I don't know. I get worried about you when you turn about 50. So, but these are the kinds of things. He didn't know that morning. It wasn't a part of his plans, so things happen like that. How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like a morning fog. It's here a little while, and then it's gone. Which is such a New Year's verse, isn't it? Especially when we're not quite at the New Year, but we're reflecting how fast the old year went by. That year it's gone. I remember, and most of you do too, COVID, you remember that? That little disease thing that almost tore apart our church forever and our country in so many different ways, but it's just a disease, right? I remember saying to actually you and to other people, I go, you know what? Just fasten your seatbelt for a little while. It's going to go by and it will become a thing in our memory. And now it's 2026 almost. And candidly, it feels like 5 minutes ago that we were talking about COVID. Right? Now I can also make it feel like forever ago. We have that ability to see things two different ways. And but I knew that all we had to do was not lose faith, not lose direction. It was going to be okay. We just need to go forward. And yeah, I mean, candidly, damage was done in our church from COVID, and let alone the rest of the world. But we felt it. But it's still just a little while. Even in persecution, that's what I picture the disciples coaching. Hey guys, it's only, even if we go to the lion's den, even if we get killed, it's just a little while. It's going to be over, and everything is going to be fine. For eternity, fine. So your life is like that. It's just like a morning fog. It's here for a little while. It goes by very quickly. I'm so sorry. It does. And what you ought to say, this is to the planners he's talking, what you ought to say is if the Lord wants us to, we will live and do this or that. I like how he says that. He didn't go, we will do such and such. He goes, no, we will live. So it starts with kind of like something I take for granted every day. I kind of take for granted I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and the next day and the next day. But I have no idea. So if the Lord wants us to, we will live and then we'll do this or that. Otherwise, you are boasting about your own pretentious plans, and all such boasting is evil. Otherwise, you're slipping into arrogance. Otherwise, you think you're in control. Otherwise, you're asking God to sign on to your plans and what you want to have happen instead of you signing on his plans and living a submitted life to him. So let me tell you the truth. Planning doesn't usually make my sin list. When I go before God and I go, hey, God, just show me what's wrong in my life. By the way, that is a very hard but good prayer to make a daily routine out of. Show me where I'm falling short. Show me what I'm doing wrong. I don't know that I've ever heard God say to me out loud, maybe because I'm not open to it, you are making all your plans, Doug. Now, it could be I'm not a planner. That would be what my wife, Lori, would tell you. Right? It was like, she's absolutely right. And we'll get to more of that in a moment. But here's the question. Is it wrong to plan? Is it wrong to plan? Well, Proverbs 20, verse 18 says, plans succeed through good counsel. Don't go to war without wise advice. So in the battles of our lives, it's good to make plans. Right? And what it's really saying is when you make your plans, it assumes you're going to make plans, get good counsel. Get wise advice. Jesus said you need to make some plans. Luke 14, 28 through 33, he's talking about before you sign on to follow me, I need you to think things through and really plan whether you're going to follow through. Right, here's what he said. He said, don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction of a building without calculating the cost first? Well, slow that down. What does that mean? It means you need building plans. It means you need to go, how much labor am I going to need? How much materials am I going to need? How are we going to build this thing? Nobody builds, well, I hope not. Nobody builds something without a plan. And if you're a really good builder, and you've built a lot in the past, maybe you do just take stuff and start throwing it in the ground and build, but it's all up here for you. You've done it before. You have a plan. You're just not sharing, right? It's there. But who would do that without calculating? And he says, to see if there's enough money to finish it. Otherwise, you might complete only the foundation before running out of money, and then everyone would laugh at you. I love that verse. Right? It's kind of like the world is an audience, and they're watching you live your life, and if you don't make plans, and if you don't follow through on your plans, and you didn't count the cost for things, they're all going to chuckle. When they see you, yeah, there's the guy. When we lived in Dominican Republic, people built without plans. It was a wealthy thing to have a plan. And banks weren't giving loans out. They built it piece by piece. So you'd drive by a place, and the foundation would be up of a little house. And you drive by 3 years later, and it's the exact same place. And if you talk to the owner, they go, oh, yeah, we're building. It was just under construction. For 3 years, nothing happened. Well, we don't have the money. We just do one thing at a time. It's sort of a necessary way for them to build. But from my perspective, that seemed, what? We don't do that here. We go into debt when we build the whole thing because winter comes and you're dead. So you got to have it finished. We can't afford to, like the DR in the Dominican Republic, you don't have to finish on time. So you just sleep outside longer or a little tent or whatever else you want to do. But I relate to hey, they started it and they couldn't afford to finish it. I think about that when we do things for church. I think, I don't want to do this in a sloppy way because I don't want people laughing at us or me. Someone asked me this year, they said, "Hey, Doug, have you ever walked up to teach and been unprepared?" And I, no, never. And they go, "You're a good speaker, well, you could just talk." And I go, no. No. I don't want them laughing at me. I want them laughing with me. There's a huge difference between those two things, right? To get up and not know where you're going, not knowing what. Now, you know this. I don't stick to the script all the time. That's part of the enjoyment. Will Doug crash and burn today? And you guys come to see if that will happen. So there's the person who started building but couldn't afford. So failing to plan well can lead to embarrassment. Is planning a sin? I don't know. I don't think so. Because Jesus said to do it. Proverbs says to do it. And the consequences of not planning well are humiliating. Or what king would go to war against another king without first sitting down with his counselors, this is Jesus talking, with his counselors to discuss whether his army of 10,000 could defeat the 20,000 soldiers marching against him? Right? Well, by the numbers, that's not going to work. But maybe by the technology, here's why 10,000 can beat 20,000. They have guns. That'll do it. That'll make the difference. But the point is, what's our plan? What leader would go to war at all without having a plan and understanding of what's going on? He says, and if he can't, he will send a delegation to discuss terms of peace while the enemy is still far away. Right, because he doesn't want to lose a war and die. So, you cannot become my disciple without giving up everything you own. See, you know what he's actually saying? You need to think about what's going to happen. Before you say yes to me, make a plan. Not everything you're going to do. Make a plan that you're all in. Make a plan that no matter what happens, you're not giving up because the cost of following Jesus is high. That's not me telling you. That's what Jesus said. I'm not asking you just to get a free ticket, although you can't pay for it, and I am going to give it to you for free. I'm asking you that you're going to have to follow through. Don't sign up. You don't know where your life is going to go. And this is God talking about that. Now, this is there's a planning aspect to that, counting the cost part. So let me give you some other proverb verses. Proverbs 16:3, commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed. Okay? Proverbs 19:21, you can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. Right? That's a humbling thing. You can make your plans, but you're not in control, is what it means. So is it wrong to plan? Well, if it's wrong to plan, I'm in big trouble. Remember I told you that Lori has the home front kind of covered for the plans? I'm not kidding. I just trust her. Sometimes I'll come home and I'll go, what do I need to do next? Here, open agenda. And then I usually delay it as long as possible, actually doing what she says. But when we started Crosswinds, we're leaving a church, my job. We're going to step out into the void. We had so many meetings. There was 4 of us. It was the Pews, Dave and Carrie Joe, and Lori and myself. And we were all working in the same church in student and children's ministries. And God kind of gave us this idea, this dream for a church that would reach people that the mother church, which is Calvary Free Church, was an awesome church, but they'd never meet. They'd never meet those people's needs. They'd never attract those people. And I knew they wouldn't because I knew I couldn't invite my neighbors there, my normal neighbors. And I thought, I need to invite them. So we sat down and we started to dream about what this church could look like and how would we do it. And we put it on paper. It was a plan. What would it look like? How would we do different things? And so this is the version of it now. It's based on what happened around the table, the initial plans we had. It's evolved a little bit. For one thing, we don't have the same name. It's called Crosswinds Church now. When we created it, it was called Figment Church, like a figment of our imaginations. And we were saying, we hope it's not that. We hope it's inspiration from God, but that seemed a little bit arrogant. Inspiration of God Church. If you come there, then you just need to know we're right in the center. But we kept submitting it to God and moving forward. So we made We made plans all the way through. So what's the danger? The danger of making a plan is entering into the illusion that I'm in control again. When my plans become the plan, when my plans become, God, will you sign on to this? Or I assume you're with me, or I'm going to find out if you're with me as I go through the plan. Right? When I make my plans, that's where the trouble gets into our life. Because when I make my plans, it puts me in the position of God. And that's dangerous. Again, 16:9, we can make our plans, Proverbs. We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. We can make our plans, but we can't really predict when we're going to stumble. We make our plans, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow. So there needs to be a sense of humility with it and surrender with it. Proverbs 16:3, commit your actions to the Lord. Surrender them to God. And your plans will succeed. You know what's really weird? Even if they fail, they'll succeed. Because it's not about your plans. It's about the submission. It's about with you, God. And God's never surprised, never out of control. You don't go, oh, God, I gave you this plan. Why didn't things go exactly the way I thought they would? Because you're not me. You're not God. Proverbs 19:21, you can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. That's written to people who are following God. You can make many plans, but you know what? At the end of the day, God's purposes will prevail. You won't speed them up, and you cannot slow them down. The only thing we can do is get on board. So the problem with plans is it leads to arrogance and pride. And I'm, by the way, if you got it, right? I want you to plan humbly. I want all of us to plan. You plan for nothing, you usually get nothing. Right? Planning is important. We all know that. I want you to have a financial plan. We teach courses on that. I want you to have a career path plan that you hold on to loosely, an education plan. I want you to have a plan for how you're going to, if you're single, how you'll date and how you'll get engaged and how you'll marry and how you'll live and how you'll raise your kids. I want you to think all of that through and have plans. And my dream is that they're submitted to God and even more so that you make your plans in the presence of God. Not on your own, not on my own. Right? Because this arrogance and pride gets in the way. As soon as we start to take what looks like control, we're starting to get into God's territory a little bit. We start to think about self-sufficiency. Like, I can do this. And I can make these things happen, right? If we make a plan, isn't there sort of an underlying tone? I can make this happen. And also, my two things, right? If I just do everything right, I can prevent disaster. If I just do everything right, it'll be okay. So Dave Pugh in our relationship, by the way, I'm sort of the visionary planning. Every little step doesn't come naturally to me. You can ask anybody who works with me. But I got a lot of ideas and a lot of dreams. And Dave Pugh said to me one time, he goes, Doug, here's the thing. You need to show me which mountain we're climbing, and I'll make sure we have all the rope and materials and food, and because I don't want to get halfway up the mountain that you said to climb, and then we all die up there. Right? I mean, like somewhere in there may have been a little insult. But I did know which mountain. But Dave's challenge, by the way, he would own this so fast if he was here because he just owned the stuff, right? His challenge was he became absolutely reliant on the plan. The plan took dominance. We just go by the plan. What's next? What's next? What's next? And he would say this. He came up to me one day and he said, hey, Doug, I've got all the plans. Everything's figured out, but here's the problem. Oh, what is it? If anything goes wrong, I don't have a plan for that. When I go, what does that mean? He goes, it means if we're short people to load up the trailers, I can't solve that problem. I'm kind of dumbfounded. Dave, if we're short 2 guys, you can't get 2 guys? He goes, I just freeze. I go, I got it. No problem, because I can turn on a dime. And that's just wiring here, right? When they go on vacation, the Pews, so much fun to watch them go. because they bring a big file box with them. Each day has its own file. Each hour has its own destination, as they're traveling across the country. And the hotel reservations are all made in advance, but that's not where it's at. That's probably wise, maybe. And then which gas stations they're going to stop at. Those are all on there. What they're going to eat, where they're going to eat, everything was spelled. And if you think I'm exaggerating, then you don't remember them. Right? And that was their vacation. When I go on vacation, north, east, south, west, which way are we going? Right? And this is good. Lori's with me. She's spatially oriented, and I don't know where we're stopping. I don't know when we're going to get hungry. I don't know bathroom breaks. I can't put my life on that schedule anyway, so there's no point to it. And there's adventure ahead. But for the planners, there's insecurity ahead. If we plan it, everything will go great. If we plan it, you're going to ruin all the fun. How are we going to see God at work if we plan everything out that detailed? Planning is God at work, right? And this is the tension that a lot of our marriages even face. But so what are the dangers? Well, one of them is a lack of flexibility. This is what I'm talking about with Dave. Love Dave. But there was a lack of inability to handle the flexible. So like I told you, between me and Lori, she's the planner at home, right? But in my world, trips, things I do here, I do plan carefully. I've already told you that. Now, not everything carefully, but I plan carefully. And when I led mission trips, I took Calvary Evangelical Free Church on our first mission trip together, 1991. We went to the Dominican Republic because Laura and I lived there. We knew the lay of the land. And, we're going to be careful with that and budgets. Don't go to that one quite yet. You're getting ahead of me, but it's nice. It means you're paying attention. You're just getting ahead of me. So 1991, and what I want to tell you is two stories from one mission trip. So this is the first mission trip, and they trusted me. I was 29 years old, 30 years old, something like that. I guess I'd be 31. And you need to know that I did a pre-trip. I planned every day. I had everything on paper. I knew the budget. I knew everything. We took, I think, 30, 40 people on this trip. It was a big trip, and I was going to be accountable. So we got there, and one of the things we were doing is we were building a new church building for a village. In the Dominican Republic, there is one rule. If there's a tree, you are not allowed to cut it down without written permission from the government. We own the land. Why can't we cut down the trees? Because it's the Dominican Republic. And because they're protecting the country from erosion, which, quite frankly, I know, I'm off script. Just hang on for a second. Haiti, incredibly impoverished. Dominican Republic, incredibly lush. The answer is Haitians cut down their trees. Erosion took place. It's barren land. It's a lot of the problem with Haiti was what their resources are. You can fly over the country and see one half looks awful, the other half looks green and lush. Same island, same everything else, right? So we were in the Dominican Republic against a lot of cut down a tree, but we got to put this church up, and I noticed that the foundation that we were laying has trees inside of it. Well, how are we going to put it up? And so I went to how are we going to get permission? And they go, you have to go down to Santo Domingo, which was a 3-hour ride in the heat. And you have to go to the government. And you know what that's like, right? And now just multiply it by 20 in a third world country, what it's like to get something done. And we're praying about it and thinking about it. And I did not have this in my plans, what we're going to do. This was a flex moment. What are we going to do? And then as we're talking about it, we're in the mother church, which is in a town called Jarabacoa, and a guy walks in and says, hey, the person who signs for trees, who lives in Santo Domingo, who is a general in their army, which is how they control forestry, they use the military to control it, is flying by helicopter here tomorrow. And he's going to be in a meeting right across the street from the church that we were just sitting in at that exact moment. And so I had to cross the street, and one of the Dominicans said, well, I'll get his attention. And, general, and this guy, pointing to me, wants to talk to you so he can cut down a tree. And white American helped me that day, right? And we met, and we got permission to cut down there's no planning. I can't plan for that. I couldn't know that. I couldn't anticipate it, right? But God met us at that moment in the plan when I had no solution. But if I wouldn't have made any plans, we wouldn't have had a place for the group to sleep, which brings me to the next part of the story. So we go down to the last day, and we're going down to the coast, and it's a town called Puerto Plata. And I had a hotel reservations, and it was really a cheap place to stay. And when I got there, I found out why. It was a cheap place to stay. So we went, and it was like, best way to say it, the bottom part was a bar gas station with merengue music. And I meant to record some so you could hear it, but you're probably blessed that I didn't. And they play it very loud, and it's dance music. Anybody know merengue? Okay. And where's the hotel? It's upstairs. And it's 2 rooms with not enough beds, but enough floor for the men and the women, and 1 bathroom and 40 people. And I came to the realization that I was going to have to pivot, that this was not going to work. But I had no plan. My plans were thwarted. I didn't know what to do next. We pulled the bus that we were in down to a corner that was overlooking the ocean and kind of walking around. We said, "God, circle up, circle up." So myself, by the way, this was not a youth trip. This was youth and adults, about 40 of us in a circle. We got together and we just said, "God, we don't have a place to stay," and started praying. And there's good moments with God when you come to the end of your plans. Because guy's walking by and he goes, "What? You guys don't have a place to stay?" "Oh, my brother's working for a new hotel. And today they're doing their first day tryout practice of everything. So the whole hotel, brand new built, is empty. But everything is ready." And I go, "Oh, you can't, really? Let me call him." So he goes, finds a phone, calls him up. Yeah. You can go there. Now I'm going, oh, this could be interesting because I don't trust him. Right? So we drive the bus. It is like a 5-star hotel. It was beautiful. Everybody had, we had, properly supervised kids and families. Everybody had their own kind of rooms or places they could stay. It was half a block from the beach. Right? But not only that, they had banquets prepared for practicing cooking. So that night, we were just fed this incredible food, delicious, wonderful food. And I'm thinking the whole time, I made plans, dang it. So that picture, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you to move on to the slide. So that picture is not the exact place, but it gives you the exact feeling of the place we stayed. Right? It was unbelievable, spectacular. So what's the lesson? The lesson is I'm not in control. Even when I do really, really good planning, still not in control. The second lesson is I do have influence. Right. Next slide. There it is. Next slide. And I am responsible. And all those things can be true at the same time, and I'm still not God. Right? I'm not in control. I have influence. I need to plan. You're sitting in a planned room, believe me. You come to church, you just pull up the driveway, for some of you who are on the new side especially. You don't think, I wonder how this got here. You just have to trust me. One plan at a time. $1 at a time. People mortgage their homes so that you can be in these chairs. Right? And it's kind of humbling. But the ultimate thing is, you're here because God gave us this. I'm here because God gave us this. And we're sitting on the edge of that new year where we're going to start planning everything out. I'm not in control. I'll never be in control. That's different than being out of control, okay? I do have influence. If I fail to plan, it will influence things. And I am responsible. So this is the season. 'Tis the season, right? This is right now. Maybe you haven't gotten there yet, because some of us like to get right up to the last day of the old year. This is the time of year when we do some reflection. What happened last year? Who are we missing that wasn't going to be with us for the next year? All those kinds of thoughts. Some of those reflections are going to lead to regret. Wow, I don't want to do that again. I wish I would have planned better. I didn't know that was going to happen. I have this sense of regret in my life. It'd be the next slide. Regret. And some things will bring you a sense of rejoicing. I am so glad I did that. That was like the best thing we ever did. I'm so glad we took the time to put that together. And look, even though we didn't do it perfect, look what God did anyway. And then once you start doing those things, it is the most natural thing in the world to make new plans. And do it. You're actually responsible to plan. You have influence over your future. You should plan. It makes sense. The Bible says it over and over again to do that. Now, James, he ends his whole book with this. James 4:17. This is right after he talks about all the planning things. He says, remember, it is sin to know what you ought to do and then not do it. Which he could have been talking about the whole book, or he could have been talking about the section that we just went through together. But we know we should think, we know we should plan, we know we're responsible. We also know we should submit our plans to God. Not telling God what the future looks like. It's sin not to do it when we know the right things to do. So what do? Well, I have a friend who adds these words to almost every future statement he makes. He says, Lord willing. He goes, tomorrow. He's actually the guy who's our guide for our trips. Tomorrow, we're going to have a big day in the land in Israel. We're going to go to these sites and these sites. And then he says, every single time he goes, the Lord willing. The Lord willing. And he just adds it to everything. And I'm annoyed. But okay, because I know the danger of it is it's just words. For this guy, it's not just words. For him, it's a reminder. Right? It's not good luck words you just throw on there. It's a reminder that his plans are just his plans. And when we talk about tomorrow, we should have that Lord willing attitude about it. What we should do is we should say, if the Lord wants, if the Lord wills, we'll do these things. There's only one way to make our plans be Lord willing plans, though. It's not just by adding those words. It's to dedicate our lives to honoring God. Good plans, God-honoring plans, don't start with making a plan. It starts by turning over our lives. It starts with going, my life belongs to you. I want my life to honor you. And then the trickle down is, I want my plans to honor you. When we make our plans, let me give you the practical part. When we make our plans, when you sit down and actually make plans, start with prayer. God, who am I to make plans? I don't know what's going to take place. Then dedicate. God, this belongs to you. It doesn't belong to me. Whatever those plans are, I don't care what you're planning. This vacation belongs to you. Seek wise counsel. If you're going to go on a trip, it might be a good idea to talk to someone who's already been to the destination you're trying to get to or has taken that same trip. It's just a good idea. You know how many people I talked to who planted churches, started churches when we were doing all those things? A bunch of them. I wanted to learn everything I could. I wanted wise counsel before I jumped into it. And then do it. Because it's sin not to know what you should do. And then not do it. And if you're making resolutions this year, remember, those are basically plans. This is what we're planning. Make your resolutions, if you're going to make them before God. Make them carefully. Make them realistically so you don't have to just endure the suffering of failed plans. But they are plans. But my prayer is we make our plans together. So I'm excited about this next year.